The door bursts open. Victoria Sinclair stands frozen in the doorway, designer heels in hand, mouth open in shock. On the bed, tangled in white sheets, Damien Cross sits up sharply, and beside him, Grace Bennett clutches the blanket to her chest, eyes wide with panic. Damien, what is this? Victoria, this isn't what you think. Oh, it's exactly what I think. The maid. My fiancé and the maid. Grace looks away, humiliated. Damien's jaw tightens, not with guilt, but with something else. Protectiveness. Grace Bennett was 26 years old, sitting in a hospital waiting room with her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. A doctor approached, holding a chart. Miss Bennett, he said gently, your brother needs surgery within the month. Without it, his heart won't hold. How much? She asked. $200,000. Grace closed her eyes. She made $34,000 a year cleaning houses. The number might as well have been $1 million. For 6 months, Grace had worked as a part-time housekeeper for a man named Damien Cross, hired through an agency, rarely even seeing him, since he stayed locked away in his office most days. He was cold to everyone, still healing, though he never said it out loud, from a fiancée who had once left him for his money, and for his own brother, in the same year. One afternoon, as Grace folded a blanket in his study, Damien walked in and studied her for a long moment. You're still here, he said. Finishing up, Mr. Cross. I'll be gone in 10 minutes. He noticed the exhaustion behind her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly. Is something wrong? She was surprised he'd even asked. No, sir. Nothing you need to worry about. He didn't push. But he didn't look away either. A week later, desperate and out of options, Grace found him alone in the kitchen, nursing a glass of whiskey. Mr. Cross, she said, I need to ask you something, and I need you not to think less of me for it. Go on, he said, intrigued. My brother needs surgery. $200,000 I don't have. I've never asked anyone for anything in my life. I'm not asking now, either. I'm offering. I'll work it off. Any job. I don't care what it costs me. Damien set down his glass. He was used to people wanting things from him, money, status, access, but never someone offering to sacrifice herself for someone else. There's only one thing I'd ask in return, he said quietly. And you can say no. Say it, she said, steeling herself. One night. That's all. No strings, no expectations after. I'll wire the money to the hospital myself, tonight, regardless of your answer. Your brother's surgery isn't a bargaining chip. But if you're offering, I won't pretend I haven't noticed you, Grace. She was stunned, both by his honesty and by the fact that he'd pay for her brother's surgery either way. Why would you help him even if I say no? She asked. Because some things shouldn't have a price tag, he said. But I'm not a good man, Grace. I won't pretend the offer isn't selfish too. She looked at him then, really looked, and saw not the cold billionaire the tabloids described, but a lonely, guarded man who had just told her an inconvenient truth instead of a convenient lie. Okay, she whispered. And that night, behind a closed door, two lonely people who had both been let down by the world found something neither of them expected to find in each other. Grace woke first, just as the sun spilled over Damien's sleeping face. For one quiet moment, she let herself imagine a different life. Then reality returned. Don't fall for the fairy tale, Grace, she whispered to herself as she dressed. This was a transaction. She left a short note on the pillow. Thank you. Tommy's surgery is scheduled for Friday. I won't forget what you did for him. No goodbye? No phone number. Weeks later, Damien asked the housekeeping agency about her. He was told she'd requested reassignment, and then quit entirely. Find her, he told his assistant, his voice unreadable. Sir, the assistant said carefully. She asked not to be contacted. She was very clear. Damien said nothing. He buried it, the way he buried everything, under work. 2 months later, in a small apartment across the city, Grace sat on her bathroom floor staring at a pregnancy test. 2 lines. Okay, she whispered, hand pressed to her stomach. Okay, it's just you and me now. She never called Damien. She didn't want to be seen as a woman who had trapped a billionaire. She wanted nothing from him but the one thing money could never buy, her dignity. She moved to Chicago, raised her son alone, worked 2 jobs, and never once let herself regret the night that had given her the best thing in her life. 5 years passed. Damien Cross had become more powerful and far more guarded. engaged now to a woman named Victoria Sinclair, a merger disguised as a relationship, arranged by his grandmother Eleanor to secure a business alliance. At a crowded charity gala, a small boy broke away from his table, chasing a stray balloon across the ballroom floor. Damien nearly collided with him. "Careful there, champ," he said. The boy looked up, and Damien froze. The child's eyes were his exact shade of gray-blue. His jaw, unmistakably familiar. "You have my eyes," the boy said matter-of-factly. "Excuse me," Damien said, stunned. "Mommy says I have my daddy's eyes. Yours look just like mine." Before Damien could respond, Grace appeared, breathless, scanning the crowd. "Ethan, there you are. I told you not to run." She stopped cold. She saw Damien. 5 years vanished in an instant. "Grace," he said quietly. "Damien," she whispered. A long, charged silence passed between them. Damien looked down at the boy again, doing the math in his head, the timeline lining up with terrifying precision. "How old is he?" he asked. "Damien, don't," Grace said, already protective. "How old?" he repeated, low and unshaken. "4, she finally said. The number landed like a blow. For the first time in 5 years, Damien Cross's cold exterior cracked wide open. Damien quietly arranged a DNA test through his personal physician. Grace, cornered but no longer willing to run, agreed, on one condition. "If he's yours," she told him, "you don't get to write a check and disappear from his life. If you're in, you're all in. Or you walk away right now, and I'll raise him exactly like I have been, alone, and just fine." "I'm not walking away, Grace," Damien said steadily. "Not this time." But Victoria had already grown suspicious of Damien's changed behavior. She hired a private investigator, and within days she knew everything. About Grace, about the boy, about the test. 5 years, she muttered to herself, seething. And some maid's son is going to ruin it. She met that same week with Marcus Cross, Damien's cousin, next in line for the family fortune should Damien ever be disgraced. "An illegitimate heir," Marcus said, smiling coldly. "A scandal like that could tank the stock, embarrass Eleanor, and open up opportunities. For both of us." "What did you have in mind?" Victoria asked. "We make sure the world sees Grace Bennett as the gold digger she must be," Marcus said. "And we make sure that boy never sets foot in a courtroom as a crossheir." They shook hands, a quiet, venomous alliance sealed in the shadows of a family that was about to be torn apart. The DNA results confirmed it, a 99.9% match. Ethan was Damien's son. Damien called an emergency meeting of the family board to formally acknowledge his heir. But before he could speak, Victoria burst into the room, waving a folder of doctored documents and photographs. "Before anyone celebrates a fairy tale reunion," she announced to the board, feigning outrage, "everyone should know exactly who Grace Bennett is. A woman who slept with an engaged man for money, disappeared with his child, and resurfaced the moment she smelled a fortune." Grace stood, steady despite the weight of every judging eye in the room. "I never asked Damien for a single cent in 5 years," she said. "I never told him about Ethan because I didn't want this. A courtroom, a boardroom, cameras, people who look at my son like he's a lawsuit instead of a little boy who deserves to know his father." Eleanor Cross, the family matriarch, studied her carefully. "Then why come forward now?" "I didn't," Grace said. He recognized his own son's eyes across a ballroom. "I didn't plan any of this. I spent 5 years planning for a life without the Cross fortune, not toward it." Damien stepped beside her and took her hand in front of the entire board. A public, undeniable stance. "Anyone with a problem with my son," he said, "or with the woman who raised him alone while I built this company, can take it up with me directly." "Careful, cousin," Marcus said, smirking. "A scandal like this could still cost you the CEO's seat. The board has the votes. Not if I have anything to say about it." Eleanor cut in sharply. "Marcus, I believe it was you who leaked our confidential merger documents to Sinclair Holdings last quarter. My investigator finished her report this morning." The room turned to Marcus. His smug expression collapsed instantly. "Grandmother, I can explain." "Explain it to the board's ethics committee," Eleanor said. "You're finished here." Victoria, seeing her ally exposed, tried to flee, but security, called ahead by Damien, blocked the door. "Damien, you can't do this to me," she said. "I already did," he replied, cold and final. "The engagement's off." It should have ended the moment you tried to erase my son from existence. In the weeks that followed, the scandal resolved entirely in Damien's favor. The board voted to remove Marcus. Victoria's schemes were exposed publicly, and Eleanor formally welcomed Grace and Ethan into the family. One afternoon, Damien found Grace packing up a temporary office, looking uncertain about her place in this new world. "Going somewhere?" he asked. "I don't know how to do this, Damien," she admitted. "Board meetings, galas, a 5-year-old with a trust fund. This isn't the life I built for him." "Then we build a new one," he said gently, all the ice gone from his voice. "Together, this time. Not a transaction. Not one desperate night. A choice, made in daylight, with nothing left to hide." "You froze," she said, tears in her eyes. "That night at the gala, when you found out about him." "I froze," Damien said. "Because for 5 years I told myself I didn't need anyone. And then a 4-year-old with my eyes told me I'd been wrong the whole time." He took her hand. "I'm not asking you for one night this time, Grace," he said. "I'm asking for all of them." Months later, in the garden of the Cross family estate, a small and intimate wedding took place. Ethan, dressed as the world's smallest ring-bearer, proudly walked the aisle. Eleanor watched with quiet pride. And Grace, radiant, walked toward Damien, no longer the cold billionaire the world once knew, but a man who had finally found everything money could never have bought him. "That's my mommy and my daddy now," Ethan announced loudly to the guests, delighted with himself. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Damien knelt to scoop his son into his arms just as Grace reached them, and the three of them stood together. A family built not on a transaction, but on a truth that had refused to stay hidden. Some nights change everything. Not because of what happens in the dark, but because of the light they refuse to let go of. 9 months and 5 years later,